Will Stroud stand strong, or will there be a new day for May in Week 6? Big stories, key matchups, and more. Locked On Patriots and Locked On Texans crossing the streams right here on the Locked On Podcast Network's Crossover Thursday.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
New England Patriots fans, Houston Texans fans, it is Week 6 of the 2024 NFL season, and that means it's time for the New England Patriots to host the Houston Texans this Sunday, October 13th, Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, Massachusetts. And that's right, you guessed it. It's also time for yours truly, Mike Debate, host of Locked On Patriots, and Brian Big Sarge Barefield, one half of the hosting tandem of Locked On Texans, to cross the streams here on Crossover Thursday. And remember, folks, Crossover Thursday is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app, use the code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Sarge, welcome to the Locked On family. This is definitely an exciting crossover. I know it's one of your first into this foray into Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network as co-host of the Houston Texans alongside my good friend John Hickman. And as the visiting team, the Texans enter this game 4-1. Huge victory over the Buffalo Bills last weekend. Not a surprise that our friends over at FanDuel have listed them as the favorites. But as we all know, injuries can be the great equalizer. And any given Sunday, things can happen as a result of those injuries. The Texans have a notable void at wide receiver with Nico Collins on injured reserve. And to me, that looks like the biggest story coming out of Houston right now. But is this the biggest concern for the Texans heading into this Week 6 matchup?
Well, Mike, first of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Thank you for welcoming me into the Locked On family. I appreciate that. It is one of the biggest concerns because the wide receiver room for the Houston Texans is very deep. Now, of course, when you lose the number one wide receiver, the number one receiver in the NFL when it comes to receiving yards, and Nico Collins, like that's a big void. And that would normally have been a problem in the past for the Houston Texans. But when you have players like Stephon Diggs, when you have players like Tank Dell, who's looking to prove a point, and let's not forget, they also have a big wide receiver now. Nico Collins is 6'4", but Xavier Hutchinson is 6'2". And these are two guys who talk to each other a lot. By them being the biggest wide receivers in the room, they always feed off of each other, talk to each other. Nico is constantly helping Xavier get better. He feels like he's the vet. He's like, I'm the big vet here, Sarge. So he normally sits next to Xavier Hutchinson, teaches him. They talk a lot on the field. And one thing that CJ Stroud has done is he loves big targets. When he gets out, when he does that scramble drill, a lot of times he's looking for number 12 because number 12 is the biggest target on the field. Next to him is Dalton Schultz, tight end. But when he scrambles out, he's looking for number 12. Well, this week he can scramble out and look for number 19 because if Xavier Hutchinson is going to get the majority of the snaps coming with Nico Collins being injured, if Xavier Hutchinson is going to get the majority of the snaps, we're talking about a guy who was a Biletnikoff finalist in college. In 2022, he was a first-team All-American. The only thing missing for Xavier Hutchinson is reps, and that's all that he has been missing. He's been doing his part as far as on special teams, doing whatever they need him to do. When he does get in the game, last week against Buffalo, he got in the game, and I think he had 2 big third-down catches, and so he's going to be able to fill that void when he's on the field for Nico Collins. That's after, though. That's after Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. Because with Nico on the field, Stephon has been playing a lot of the slot. But we know that he can also play on the outside as well. And when you put Tank on the outside, you put Stephon on the outside. And when Xavier Hutchinson comes in, you can move Stephon Diggs back to the slot. But also, because they have so much depth, at the end, in the post-game press conference last week, they asked Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs was asked when we were in the media scrum, what did you say to the team after you knew that Nico wasn't coming back, he said, we have enough depth. We have enough depth on this team, and it's just time for the next man up. It's time for the next man to step up. So it's time for Xavier Hutchinson to step up. It's time for John Mechie to step up, because when you put Diggs on the outside, you have Tank on the outside. You can also bring in John Mechie, who can run every route on the route tree. He's going to be able to help, and you still have Dalton Schultz. You still have Cade Stover. So they're going to miss Nico. Definitely going to miss his presence. Definitely going to miss what he brings to the field. But they have enough depth in order to hold it down until he gets back.
And that's very good to know, because the Patriots secondary right now is definitely feeling the injury bug itself, with Kyle Duggar not being able to go. A lot of people wondering if this is going to be the week where he does come back. He did not practice on Wednesday. Patriots rely on Kyle to be that traffic director in that backfield. So without him there, puts a lot of pressure on guys like Christian Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones to be stout in the corner game, because the Patriots right now are devoid of safeties. Of course, we all follow the Jabril Peppers situation. He right now is on the commissioner's exempt list, so he will not be out there. Going to be interesting to see how the Patriots kind of adapt to be able to try to keep that potent passing attack of the Houston Texans in check. But Sarge, also on offense, the Texans are also dealing with an injury to starting running back Joe Mixon, and that has caused the running game to slow down a little bit. The Texans are averaging 104.2 yards per game, but barely 4 yards per carry. Is there a concern that if the Patriots defense tries to force Houston to be one-dimensional, that it could lead to problems with this running game?
On Wednesday, we got some very good news from head coach D'Amico Ryans. Damian Pierce, who started once he in the league here before for the Houston Texans, and now is a backup to Joe Mixon, who's been dealing with a hamstring injury, will be back. And so he was close to playing last week, but they held him out one more week. And Coach D'Amico Ryans said on Wednesday that he will be playing. And so that will help out that Texans offense so much. And one of the reasons why those rushing numbers look like that is because you don't have you don't have Joe Mixon. You didn't have Damian Pierce. They were down to the third and fourth string running backs in Dare Ugamawale and Cam Akers. And what Dare did against the Buffalo Bills let the Texans know that they could sit out Joe Mixon at least one more week to get him healthy, especially if you're going to get Damian Pierce back. What Dare Ugamawale has done is he's a third down back who's starting to get a lot of snaps. And although he's not getting the runs that he needs in between the tackles, what they're doing is they're finding ways to utilize his skill set as that third down back, playing on first and second downs, getting him into the flats. You remember last week against the Buffalo Bills when C.J. Stroud, the last offensive play that they had before they kicked the game-winning, before Kaimi Fairbairn kicked the 59-yard game-winning field goal, C.J. was pretty much stuck and didn't know where to go. Looked right in the middle of the field, and there's Dare Ugamawale wide open. Got another 4 or 5 yards to put them in field goal range, and the rest is history. And so having Damian Pierce back, I don't know, he's missed so much time. He hasn't played since the first week. Missing him during that time, and trying to get Cam Akers, a running back who, we've seen him, Super Bowl winning running back, but was looking for a job after he dealt with injuries. They gave him a tryout. He came and he made the team, but he's still getting himself together, still getting his body together. And they're still trying to teach him how to, reteach him how to run between the tackles. That's why they're doing a lot of sweeps with him. So that running game should look better this week, getting Damian Pierce back and with Dare Ugamawale.
Yeah, very good point. I'm glad you mentioned Pierce, one of the more exciting rushers before he went down with the injury. Going to be good to see him back on the field, unless you're a Patriots fan. You definitely don't want to see him coming at you, because the Patriots right now are still trying to figure out things up front on their defensive line in trying to stop the run and be a formidable defense. Before we take our leave of the Texans' biggest story, Sarge, I did want to ask you at least one question about that Texans defense that right now is generating a league best 42% pressure rate. Obviously, you've seen the headlines. Drake Maye is going to get the start here in New England. The Patriots offensive line is allowing a league worst 48.3% pressure rate. How much right now do you think Danielle Hunter, do you think Will Anderson are licking their chops waiting to get after this Patriots offensive line?
Well, you know what, Mike? What I couldn't understand is why now? Why start Drake Maye now against the fourth best defense, the fourth best defense in the league? With the defense who and I know you look at the numbers, and like you said, with the quarterback pressures, they're not getting the sacks, but they're getting the pressure, and they're causing so much chaos and confusion. And so I don't know if Coach Mayo looked at the game last week and see what the Houston Texans defense did to a top 5 quarterback in the league, holding him to 9 of 30 passing. I think he had 131 passing yards and did not look comfortable the whole day. And now you say, hey, Drake, you ready? And he's like, to play against who? Because that's the one thing that I couldn't understand, Mike, is you're going to start him against the number 4 defense in the league when your next 3 games is against the Jaguars, the Jets, and the Titans. Like, I don't think you should just throw him to the Wolves right now. But since you are going to throw him to the Wolves, I hope that they watched a lot of tape of the week 2 game against the Chicago Bears and what that the defensive ends and Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr., how much pressure they put on rookie Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall selection in the 2024 NFL draft. This is a guy that was exciting, exhilarating, and they kept him on the run the entire day. And so as I watched I watched some film. I watched some film of the New England Patriots offensive line, and I said, I don't know if they're ready. But with that being said, the Houston Texans have been getting a lot of ugly wins here lately. The last 2 weeks, we see how they had to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars and how they had to beat the Buffalo Bills, And what I don't want to happen to the Houston Texans is this become a trap game, and they play, and look, I don't mean any disrespect when I say this, but I don't want them to have to play down to their competition while they're looking ahead to play the Green Bay Packers in the next week. So with that being said, Coach D'Amico Ryans has already reiterated to his team on numerous occasions coming into practice, because I talked to Will Anderson Jr. on Wednesday, and he said, Coach told us we better be ready. No matter who we're playing against, no matter what the record is, this is still an NFL team. And if Drake Maye puts on NFL uniform, if he puts on a uniform, he puts on a Patriots uniform and takes a snap at quarterback, we're going to treat him as if we're playing Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. We don't care who's at quarterback. We're just trying to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I think we'll get into in the next segment a little bit more as to why the Patriots are making this move at this point. But I got a funny feeling it has to do with averaging 119.4 passing yards per game, one of the worst in the league. Patriots have nowhere to go but up offensively, or do they? I think Sarge has given all of us here in New England a little something to think about heading into this game, but we're going to get into the Patriots strategy and what the biggest storylines coming out of New England are when this episode of the Locked On Patriots, Locked On Texans crossover episode continues right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On listeners, I wanted to take a moment to ask you all out there in Locked On land, are you familiar with Z-Biotics, the pre-alcohol probiotic drink that's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic? It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink alcohol, it gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough day next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Again, step 1 is to drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make that pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, pace yourself, hydrate, and make sure to get a good night's sleep. And step 3, enjoy tomorrow. You wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. So go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On NFL at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Locked On listeners, we hope you're all enjoying today's crossover episode. And let's face it, we've all been there. You want tickets to the big game on the gridiron, or maybe you want to check out some early preseason action on the hardwood or on the ice. Or maybe you just want to be there when your favorite music or comedy act comes to town. Well, Game Time is your best destination, and they are the fastest and easiest method I've ever used to buy tickets. And listen up, because you're going to love this. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks, and that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I especially love Game Time Zone deals, where you pick the section, Game Time picks the seats for big savings. So don't delay, do it today. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Locked On listeners, thank you so much for joining us here today on this crossover episode. Mike Debate of Locked On Patriots, Brian Big Sarge Barefield, host of Locked On Texans, coming at you, crossing the streams, Pat's Texan style, getting you ready for Week 6 and a 1 p.m. kickoff at Gillette Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts. In the previous segment, folks, we talked about the biggest stories heading out of Houston. Brian, it's a tale of two cities here in New England. It's a much different circumstance. The Pats sit at 1-4. Really at the bottom of the statistical barrel when it comes to offense. The defense has tried to hold pretty strong, but they've had their issues with injuries lately. And the Patriots right now, quite simply, have nowhere to go but up. One of those big reasons why you're going to see the rookie Drake Maye make his starting NFL quarterback debut against the Texans this weekend. Now, in the previous segment, you kind of led us into this segment by asking why. Why are the Patriots going to Drake Maye at this point? Knowing full well that this is a pressure-packed defense that the Houston Texans are throwing at them. A lot of talent on this side of the ball. New England right now is having difficulty getting their receivers open, getting separation to be able to make things happen. The running game has been somewhat solid, but there have been issues with ball security. And, of course, the offensive line has been decimated by injury and riddled with poor play. But the Patriots have made strides in some of those departments as of late, Sarge. So I think what the Pats are looking at is they're seeing a bottom of the barrel rating when it comes to passing yards. They're seeing an option where a young rookie quarterback has the chance to maybe help to mask some of the problems that you have along the offensive line by going off script, being able to make throws down the field, give him an opportunity to extend or make plays with his legs, and essentially provide that type of spark that the Patriots are going to need in order to be able to remain competitive. That being said, it's going to be a tough road ahead for the New England Patriots going against the Houston Texans. To answer your question of why, I think the Patriots would have preferred to start Drake when he was fully ready, maybe when the offensive line was doing a better job, maybe against a defense that wasn't so pressure-packed, but considering all of the difficulties that Jacoby Brissett has had up until this point, I think the Patriots looked at it and said, we need a spark. We need it now. Let's see what the kid can do against one of the top teams in the league.
And I definitely understand all of that. And you know what the crazy thing about this is, Mike, because if we would have had this conversation a while ago, a long time ago, and I'm not even talking about Drake Maye, I'm just talking about the franchise in general. It's still weird to me to look at the New England Patriots franchise and see, you know, all that nostalgia, all that history, all that consecutive Super Bowls and AFC championship games. And now we're saying it's almost like they're in a rebuild. And so being in a rebuild, and I know that they didn't draft Drake Maye for him to sit on the bench. I understand that they drafted him to play. And everybody isn't going to have the situation like the Houston Texans had with CJ Stroud, where he just came in and had a record-breaking rookie season. I mean, you know, even though he was a number 2 overall pick in that draft, he still had a chip on his shoulder, and he proved to everybody that he probably should have went number 1. But when you look at when I'm looking at the Patriots offense, and I'm saying, okay, you're going to put Drake Maye in there. Can you tell me how wide receiver Jalen Polk and Ramondre Stevenson can help a young quarterback like Drake Maye?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, it really starts with Ramondre Stevenson because Alex Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator in New England, loves to run an offense predicated on using a strong running game to be able to open up play action, take deep shots down the field. He loves to call an outside zone game, and that's where Ramondre is at his best. Ramondre's actually looked very good running the ball in Alex Van Pelt's offense. He's comfortable in the outside zone. He is able to facilitate that type of passing game. The problem is twofold. One, Jacoby Brissett has not been able to find enough time in order to be able to get the ball downfield. That's problem one. The other problem is Ramondre's had his difficulty with holding on to the ball. Prior to last Sunday's game against the Miami Dolphins, he fumbled the ball 4 times in as many games. If you're going to be that strong force to facilitate their offense, it's going to be very, very difficult when you can't control the ball. So Ramondre has to do a better job of taking care of the ball. He looked very good doing it against the Dolphins. Obviously, the Patriots have confidence that he can continue to do that. And if he does, Drake Maye is the type of quarterback that can go off script. He can roll out. He can make the type of throws, the athletic type of plays that the Patriots are going to need to provide a spark for that offense. So that's how Ramondre can really help Drake Maye. Run the ball strong, be a force on early downs, and then allow that second, third down weapon to really be Drake Maye's arm and his ability to move the ball downfield. And that's where Jalen Polk comes in because Jalen is a very good point of catch receiver. Right at the point of attack, this guy can go up, get the ball, and he can make things happen, especially in the red zone. So I think Jalen is going to be a very big factor for the Patriots. That's when I look for guys like Demario Douglas and maybe even the veteran Kendrick Bourne coming back from an injury, had his first game back last week. These can be security blankets for Drake in order to get the ball down the field. So all of these players are going to have a major role in whether or not Drake Maye succeeds on Sunday.
I think that outside of Drake Maye having to go up against the defensive ends, Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr., outside of trying to avoid them, one of the biggest issues he's going to have is going up against the mind of head coach DeMeco Ryans. I mean, this is a coach who not only played the linebacker position, but also, was an assistant on the San Francisco 49ers when their defense was top 5, top 2 sometimes. I mean, he also was the defensive coordinator before he got the job with the Houston Texans. So you're going up against his mind and his ability to be able to scheme different types of defenses and defensive schemes and give different looks to a young quarterback who has never seen it before. You also have Azeez Al-Shaair playing in that middle spot who, I know that he's going to be waiting on Ramondre. And he's going to be waiting on Stevenson because he's just that type of attack, and he's very, very smart. When you watch him on film, he will come downhill and hit you, but he's also not bad in pass coverage either. He had 2 opportunities to intercept the ball from Josh Allen on last weekend. One of the reasons why he didn't is because he was in the emergency room Saturday night, lost 10 pounds, didn't think that he was going to even be able to play. They actually told him, we don't think you should play, but he said, you're not going to keep me off the field. And so we're talking about Anderson. We're talking about Hunter. We're talking about Azeez Al-Shaair. We're talking about DeMeco Ryans. But you also have to remember, when it comes to Jalen Polk and Bourne, they're going up against arguably one of the best defensive backs, cornerbacks in Derek Stingley Jr., who can shut down an entire field. I think he was targeted 4 times last week, no catches. There was no receptions against him. This is a young man who he amazes me. I love talking football with him in the locker room because he can run you through plays. Matter of fact, I think 2 weeks ago, he told me about when Devontae Adams tried to run a double move on him when they played the Raiders. I don't even remember how many. He's like, yeah, I remember. He tried to run this move twice. And I'm saying to myself, how do you remember that? I can't even remember what I had on last week. But I digress. You have Stingley on one side, and then this rookie out of Georgia, Kamari Lassiter. This is a young man that he refuses to lose at anything. And I understand he's a two-time NCAA champion when he was at the University of Georgia, but he's so competitive and he wants to be just as good as Derek Stingley. Sometimes you forget that he's a rookie. Now, there's some moves that he can be beat on. Last week he missed a tackle on Keon Coleman, and that freed him up to score that touchdown, a 49-yard touchdown on a missed tackle. But he only gave up, he was targeted 6 times, gave up 2 receptions for 70 yards, and the majority of that came off of that. And so when you take all of that dynamic of that defense and Jalen Petrie, who they moved from safety to the corner position now, who is almost like an additional linebacker, along with Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o, I just think it's going to be a very long day for a rookie like Drake Maye against that defense.
Yeah, without any question. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. D'Amico Ryans is a coach that is innovative and he loves to make life difficult for young quarterbacks. You mentioned this earlier about what they did to Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears in week 2. 2 interceptions, 7 sacks in only his second career start. That is going to be something the Patriots need to monitor, because you know they're going to give Drake a lot of exotic looks, things that he hasn't seen, things that he's not used to going up against. That could be a problem. Folks, can the New England Patriots and Drake Maye earn their first victory since week 1 and upset the Houston Texans? On the other hand, can the Texans keep the ball rolling, move to 5-1, and put their stamp on being one of the AFC's top teams? What's it going to take for each of these teams to earn victory? We're going to talk keys to victory. This episode of Locked On Patriots, Locked On Texans crossover Thursday episode continues right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Houston Texans heavily favored against the New England Patriots this weekend. If you want to put that fandom to the test, definitely do so with FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page right where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Do so with FanDuel. Don't delay. Do it today. FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Patriots fans and Texans fans, thank you for joining us today on this Locked On Patriots, Locked On Texans crossover episode. Mike Debate of Locked On Patriots, joined by Brian Big Sarge Barefield, host of Locked On Texans. And Brian, we've talked a lot about what the New England Patriots and the Houston Texans need to do to remain competitive and to give themselves an edge in this game. But when it comes right down to it, these games are usually about keys to victory. Little things that these teams need to do, maybe major things these teams need to do in order to make sure that they're on the winning side. Being the visiting team, when you look at the Houston Texans, what would you say are the keys to victory this Sunday for Houston?
The only key, there's only one key for the Houston Texans this weekend, and that is to get that offense going. Now, when you look at their stats, I know that they're ranked #1 in passing offense with 272 yards per game. I know that they are 6 in total offense at 376.6 yards per game, but the offense has looked stale. The offense has looked ineffective at times. It looks like they're stuck sometimes in mud, and they need to get out of that mud, get out of that rut, and get going. They haven't scored over 30 points this year, and with the amount of talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball, led by quarterback CJ Stroud, now is the time. This is one of the times where you're playing against a team, and I don't want to call the Patriots a weaker opponent, because any team can be beaten in the NFL on any given Sunday. Last year, we watched the Houston Texans go into a game against the Carolina Panthers. Panthers were winless on the season, and they lost. Went in against the Atlanta Falcons, a team that they should have beaten very, very handily on that day, and they lost. And so you cannot look past any team in the NFL. But with the amount of firepower that they have and the offensive mind and Bobby Slowick, the only key to victory is to make sure that you're scoring and you keep scoring. In the second half, of games this season, that offense has become putrid. And I know people don't like when I say that, but before last Sunday, they were averaging 8.5 points in the second half, and you can get that from kicker Kaimi Fairbairn. Especially with this type of offense, you have to score, and keep scoring, keep your foot on the gas. And so the only key to victory is to make sure that offense runs smoothly and effectively.
Very good point. And I think that if the Houston Texans do that, once again, it's going to be a long day for the New England Patriots, even though they are playing in those snazzy red throwbacks, which I know fans are going to love to see. They are at home. They are starting a rookie quarterback, and it is the beginning of a new era. It will be a bright era in New England, folks, but they're facing a tough team on Sunday, and it's going to be awfully tough to gain this victory. But I am here to tell you, Patriots fans, there is a way to do it. The way the Patriots need to earn the victory against the Texans is, first off, they need to protect their quarterback. The Patriots need Vidarian Lowe to have another strong game at left tackle, the interior of the offensive line to play solid. If that line can hold up, the Patriots have a puncher's chance in this one. That means Ramondre has to be strong running the football. That means Antonio Gibson needs to be a strong receiver out of the backfield and be a third down weapon. And the Patriots have to get the passing game involved. There will be times, Sarge, where you will see Drake Maye make eye-opening throws, and Patriots fans will be excited. The problem is he going to be able to make enough of them? And you mentioned the secondary of Houston, and as well as that pressure-packed defense led by Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Going to be tough for the Patriots to do that. On defense, the Patriots have to try to control what is a very dangerous Houston offense. The way to do that is to ride the legs and the arms of Christian Gonzalez, who has been one of the better cornerbacks in the league this year. The size, the length, the ability to be able to lock down his opponent. But finally, and this is going to be the big key, they have to hope Houston makes some mistakes, and the Patriots have to capitalize on it. I think this is the biggest key to victory for New England. When you match up these two teams on paper, Houston should win this matchup 9 times out of 10. If the Patriots can capitalize on mistakes and can force them, that's where they're going to be able to feed off the home crowd, use that newfound energy from Drake Maye starting in this game, and then they have a chance to do it. Do I like their chances in this game? We'll see. But at the same time, I'm looking forward to it. Sarge is looking forward to it. We'll be in attendance, and we're going to be ready to break this game down for you. But first of all, Bud, I just want to thank you very much for joining me here today on this crossover episode, for joining the Locked On family. Honored to be your colleague, more honored to now be your friend, and I'm looking forward to covering this one. So any parting words for Patriots fans or Texans fans when it comes to this one heading into week 6, Bud?
Well, I just want to tell the Houston Texans, and I meant to throw this in there, hey, cut down on the penalties. It will make the fans very, very happy. Other than that, hey, I look forward to seeing what the Houston Texans are going to do. And like I said, any given Sunday, any team could be beat. I just don't think that it's going to be this Sunday.
Yeah, I think you make a great point on penalties, Sarge. The Patriots had a dozen penalties that they were whistled for last week against the Dolphins, 6 of which by colleagues of mine that I hold in the highest regard were labeled as egregious or totally avoidable. That's not good. Patriots have to be more disciplined. Houston has to be more disciplined. Whichever team wins that battle may end up coming out on top. But we hope you enjoy this matchup coming up on Sunday. Don't forget, game predictions, and there's still more to come, both on Locked On Texans and on Locked On Patriots. So check out Brian, Big Sarge Barefield, and my good friend John Hickman each and every day on the Locked On Texans podcast. And if you're a Houston Texans fan and you want to keep your friends close and your enemies closer this week, you can check me out on Locked On Patriots. On behalf of Brian, Big Sarge Barefield, I'm Mike Debate, wishing you all the chance to stay well, to stay safe, and to be the change you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.